Welcome back to another episode of the Chats with Clark podcast. I'm your host, Joe Clark, and here at Chats with Clark, we don't do poppy intros. We get straight to the point. And the point today is another wonderful human being with great ambition, great faith, and just a bubbly, happy personality, Mia Daigle. Mia, thanks for being here. How are you?
I'm great. I'm doing so good. Thank you so much for having me on. Super excited. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah, I'm happy you're here. And Mia, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I, as you know, am from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Went to good old John Carroll with you for school. What a pleasure. And then I actually moved to Nashville soon after school, I was working remotely for a healthcare company. And just came here because I interned here. I loved it. And so I came back and I have some good friends here. So I wanted to, just give it a shot. So now I'm here working a new job. It's been so many changes, but such a good experience. So excited to be on and talk more with you. It's been forever.
Yeah, it has been a long time. Mia and I have been friends for years, as she mentioned, from our John Carroll college days, which for context is in Cleveland. So Mia's done a lot of traveling, right? From Pittsburgh to Cleveland to Nashville to Pittsburgh to Nashville and all in between. So it's been I'm sure, adventure filled ride for you from really ever since you went to school and back.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Pittsburgh, so went to school about 30 minutes outside of Pittsburgh, Western PA area, right by the airport. But senior year, I made my decision last day that you could like decide the college day. And so I was between John Carroll, Kent State, and I wanted to look into LSU because I had got my SAT score back and it was pretty good. So I felt confident that I could get in. But I never ended up applying because some things that happened that year. But I chose John Carroll because it was close enough, but still far away to like get the experience of college. So went there for college. COVID happened, so I didn't end up actually finish like living there throughout the whole 4 years. Interned in Nashville, and then it's crazy. It really is all over the place.
It is, yeah.
Graduated in Pittsburgh. So I did the internship in Nashville, came back to Pittsburgh to live there while COVID was occurring. And then I finished school in Pittsburgh remotely. So then after like almost a year working in Pittsburgh post graduation, I moved back to Nashville where I am now. So I'm just indecisive with where I want to live. I'll be honest.
Well, you stay in a nice little circle of three, so
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think Cleveland was for college. I loved it. I don't know if I think it's really similar to Pittsburgh.
it is. I was going to say you're pushing the thin line here with the whole Cleveland slander. We don't accept that. So we were going to end the podcast. It was going to be a 2-minute episode, but no, yeah, they're very similar.
They are. And I no, sure, just because the Browns and the Steelers whole rivalry, I was like in denial for a little bit. I said, no, they're not similar. They're very different.
They're
And now
so similar.
I'm out of it. I'm like, okay, they're basically the same.
What is it that you love about Pittsburgh? Well, we won't say Cleveland, but Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, yeah. Obviously, like we've talked about in the past, it's home. Like to be honest, I'm biased. I love the sports there are awesome. I love the Steelers. So that's fun. Big city for sports. But more than anything, like my family's there. So all the memories I've made, it's home to me. And I think the summers there, I love northern summers. So, if it's between Tennessee or Pittsburgh in the summer, I might choose Pittsburgh.
Sure.
So I don't know. It's the family, it's homey.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to offer in Pittsburgh. I actually don't know the city too well, honestly. I might know Nashville better than Pittsburgh at this point. So it's kind of funny.
That is wild.
Yeah, because I am about 30 minutes outside of the city. And I know it like okay, but I think Pittsburgh's just home to me. So
and it probably has a natural something to do with the ages, right? Like at the age that we are now, being in Nashville, you're going to explore the downtown and the city and the areas more than you would be pre-college during those high school years. Not too many people in high school knew their city that well, I feel like. So
true. I think like you said, when you move to Nashville, obviously you're making that move to grow in some way or explore, and it's just bound to happen. Like you're more, I guess, motivated to see the city whenever you come place. You're like, you go there, here and there. At least for me, that was my experience. And then I came here and I was so ready to up and go everywhere. So
100%. It's all new. Everything is new.
exactly. It's just such a good new experience.
And so walk us through your life in Pittsburgh up through those, again, those high school years and kind of what you did, what you were into, who
Yeah.
was Mia Daigle through those 17, 18, whatever you want to call it, years.
Yeah. I had such a good experience in high school, middle school. I so I'm from a town called Imperial. It's really small. I think it's like 3,000 people, maybe a little bit less. There's like a lot around us, but the actual town where my high school is, it's in Imperial. It's really small, and we had a really close knit community. I grew up when I was young. I was a really shy little girl. I just always remember myself like the older I've gotten, I've realized I don't know, just thinking back on being raised in like my childhood, I've been thinking about it so much more recently, just like understanding certain things. But I grew up really shy. And so, like, I had the side where I'd meet new people, and I was that. And then, but around people that I knew really well, I was so spunky and like feisty,
Hmm.
smart, and just fun. And like, I was really, I don't know, it was like I had these two different sides. I was just shy in public and like in front of the people I loved. I was really fun and just really outgoing. But I think the older that I got, I kind of grew into that friendly, open, more that side of me.
Hmm.
But through middle school, I met so many people. That's where like I formed our friend group. Obviously, like that usually happens in middle school, high school. So we actually had a huge group of girls, like 18, which was really uncommon.
It's
So
incredible.
I know. So we went to high school and I cheered, I ran track, and I did that. I did both of those almost all the way through. I quit track in junior year because I just like wanted to focus on cheerleading with my friends. But
Mhm.
that was great. My brother played football, so just the all American story.
Small town, small.
Yeah, like the Friday nights, going to B Dubs after just the small town nights. I loved it. I had a really good experience. But fast forward to senior year, so had a great time. Was just trying to really figure out who I was, which did not know it all in high school.
Who does?
After graduating, yeah, I was just a lost girl. Everyone's not sure of who they are. But senior year in December, so like kind of that halfway mark
Hmm.
through the year, as you know, I lost my dad unexpectedly to a heart attack. So, and earlier in that year, actually in May, we lost my grandfather, and he lived with us. So that was like my first big loss, where I went through just a really those first couple months where I was so sad, but I didn't know how to like identify like what it was or how to really process it. So then 6 months later, my dad unexpectedly passed away. And that was obviously a huge heartbreak and just a lot to process and heal from and everything. But um, just moving forward in those next few months, I had such a great community at West A of friends and family that were so supportive. And I know a lot of people say that, and it's just such an amazing thing to see that, just the love that comes from it. So then in April, around my birthday, I decided I was going to go to John Carroll to not know what I was going to do in school, like with a
Hmm.
degree. I knew it was a good spot for me to go, just with my brother was there and everything. So towards the end of the year, that's what I chose. And then I went and moved on to John Carroll. But
My God, Mia. I mean, to be that's you're so young to have both those things happen, right? Like
yeah.
particularly a dad.
Mhm.
How did you like? How did it come to be? How did you find out? How did you respond? Like that's
Yeah.
crazy trauma right there.
No, it was. And that's what I had a really hard time for a while, like saying that it was traumatic. If
Hmm.
that, just because I feel like I had to be honest, my family has always been a family that is not the best at communicating, kind of like toughs things out and doesn't just face things head on and talk about them. So it was really confusing, to be honest. This might be a weird word to use, but the day of was obviously such a blur. I remember it really clearly, but it was just like you said, very traumatic. And so moving forward from that, it was leaning on a lot of people. And that's when I started to find my faith, because I actually grew up in a Catholic church, which it didn't work out for me, the
Mm.
Catholic Church. So once I was 17 and that had happened with my dad passing unexpectedly, it wasn't sudden and right away that I found that relationship with God, but after a little while of just serious depression and anxiety, and a lot of just honestly like abandonment issues. It happened so quick, and then losing my grandpa 6 months before, it
Mhm.
was a lot to process at 17 years old. So, um, I think it was probably like towards the end of senior year where I really felt like I know that the Catholic Church isn't what's working for me. It isn't right for me. So then we
Yeah,
switched to non-denominational born again Christianity. And it really worked for me. And I felt really drawn to just having a relationship with Jesus. And it's definitely just grown a lot since then and learning a lot about that in the Bible and everything. So
that's beautiful. Yeah. And I feel like at the crux of it is just that, like you said, that relationship with Jesus, the appreciation for who Jesus is. And before we dive into that, because I'm very curious, to be totally like obvious, both your grandpa and your dad were men.
yeah,
So that leaves you without two pivotal male figures in your life at, again, a really young age. And you had mentioned your brother and how you were close with him throughout high school. He played on the football team, you're cheering at that moment. So he would have been at Carroll. How did your relationship with him develop? I mean, I feel like that dude had to probably, to use another like small town analogy, like pull his boots up and like
I
he
mean,
knew that he was a guy.
no, you're exactly right. Um, and that's been a lot even to this day to just still kind of like work through and heal from just because he was 20 years old, still so young. He was at John
Hmm.
Carroll at the time, like you said. He actually was in Wisconsin at a football game away from home when it happened, when he actually passed. So he got the news from one of his coaches like right before the game started.
Oh my God.
Yeah, his story is like very it's a lot because he was away from home and he handled it like he thought I'm gonna be the man of the family now, which was different and kind of he's so young and he's my brother and my mom's son, so he wasn't supposed to fill my dad's role, but he stepped up and he really worked super hard just to pave the way in his career and just work hard to set his life up in that way.
Hmm.
um, but just such different experiences there. But ever since that happened, we were close before my dad passed, but not, it bonds you, of course. Like us three
Hmm.
have a bond that I really do think is unshakable after a lot of things we've been through. But my brother, for sure, is someone that I will go to bat for sure. Like,
Yeah.
is my ride or die. And he's just always, it's been the same way. Like, even when we went to John Carroll, we have some funny stories. Like, wait, why am I forgetting the name of the bus? Cabby D.
KBD.
We'd be on Cabby D and just, have such a good time together and made such good memories. And if anyone messed with me, he was right there and he was just there to protect me. Like he really stood up as a protector, because that role in my life obviously wasn't there anymore. And
Hmm.
not that he ever can fill the shoes of my dad, but he definitely, you know, did his best to do all he can just to make us feel protected and supported and everything like that. So,
Yeah. He never wanted to be like the replacement. He just wanted to be the fulfillment of himself. And he just had to do that a little earlier than
I mean,
most
yeah,
people would want ever.
yeah, I think it's just the sudden aspect of it. It's just kind of like that fight or flight mode kicking in where he knew, okay, I can be sad, um, but I also need to figure this out and step up and be the one to kind of carry us through this. And I think at this point, now that I've grown in my faith a lot and have moved here, I think that we all kind of lean on each other in different ways and help each other to get through it because it's been 6 years, but it's hard in different ways now, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah.
Because obviously the first year it's a lot of crying and depression and all these really dark thoughts, whereas now I obviously believe in a life after this and I have hope and everything, but I still get really sad missing my dad and stuff. So it's just a
Hmm.
different kind of thing to deal with. A
Have
different kind
you, sorry, have you
of,
had signs, like you would say, where you feel like he's communicated with you?
Yeah, I get my signs have been dreams. Out of my mom, my brother, and I have been the one that has received so many dreams. The first couple, like, my dad wasn't speaking audibly. I just saw
Yeah.
his face in certain things. But recently I've had dreams where I've spoken to him about like my life at this point and have gotten to
Oh
like
my
caught up.
God.
So I think that's so great. Like, how do you explain that? I think that that
Right.
is absolutely a sign, and it's obviously really comforting. Sometimes I wake up and I cry a little happy tear, but it's good because I know like he's with me in some kind of way.
Yeah. Do you remember those dreams too?
Yeah, I there's a couple that I really remember. The most recent one was it was a little weird. Like we were at a funeral home and he was in a casket, but he was alive. And I
Okay.
walked up to the casket and we just had a normal conversation. And he
Wow.
asked me how everything was going in his little southern accent. Like he sounded the exact same. He was the exact same. And he was always such a simple guy. And we just had to talk about life. And that's who he was at his core. Like he was just such a good friend to everyone. And
Mhm.
he just enjoyed sitting on the porch and having a beer or two and talking to a friend or me or my mom. Like
Man,
he was really simple. Like he loved to just talk about life and be there for people.
that is how every time you describe him with great affection, of course, and admiration for him, like it's always that stands out to me is like the simplicity union that he had with himself and with the people around him and with the world. Like that's that really is such an admirable thing. Like we should all shoot for that.
Yeah, thanks for saying that because it's like, obviously you've never met him, but
Mhm.
I'm glad that the way I talk about him shows like just like you said, admiration and passion I have for like the relationship I had with him as my dad, just showing me the things that mattered and everything. Because I think, as we all know in this world, in our generation, everything just kind of popping off with social media and all of that. I've had times where I've struggled and it's been really hard to just like get myself grounded. And I think that's obviously one of my biggest whys. So when I think about who he was at his core, he was just the most simple guy. He worked hard, he had good beliefs, and he was there for people and loved people and didn't judge anyone around him. He'd accept anyone, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I think just remembering that keeps me grounded in who I really am because I think it's so easy to get caught up in all the things of the world and all the distractions and everything like that. So
You do have a million and one, not you specifically, but anyone has a million and one people telling them who they are. So that's like
yeah,
the world right now, which is crazy. But yeah, to have it's
yeah,
an awful thing, but like at the same time, what you've taken from it is beautiful. So
yeah. No, I definitely believe that beautiful things come out of really tough hardships for sure.
and how did your like how was your mom? How did your mom? I can't even like I mean,
Yeah.
my God, I don't know. Like just to have someone be gone that you were raising a family with, that you were married to for years, like that is just so hard to even wrap your head around. It's just, I mean, it's awful. How did she do with it, and what was kind of her reaction? And how about your relationship with her? Because that had to be entirely different than
Oh,
prior.
yeah, there's a lot there to unpack, so I'll try to keep it structured because
Whatever you're comfortable with.
yeah, absolutely. So, we went to therapy. We tried therapy a couple times as a family of three, and I think I therapy is awesome, and I would recommend it to anyone. I think you have to find someone that works for you, of course, but we found one lady after a couple that was working for us, and she was great. And I think the one thing, because this was 6 years ago, so the one thing I really remember her saying that I took with me was that we all lost someone like different to
Mhm.
us. You know what I mean? He played a different role in all of our lives, of course. Me and Nick shared him as a dad, but like the relationship was different because Nick was his son, I was his daughter. So obviously that was different in a lot of ways. And then my mom was his wife, so she lost her husband, and it's really a different loss. So I think that helped us to understand each other a little bit more, or at least try to, because as you know a little bit, my mom had started to date about a year after my dad passed. So I was 18 and I was still 18. And that was a lot to process for sure for me at 18. I think just no matter how my dad passed away, I think it would have been hard, but especially because it
Mhm.
was so unexpected, it was something I was still really in the thick of processing and grieving over and everything. So that was really tough for me. I know a lot of people go through losing a parent, and it's really hard to have an outlet where you feel like you can express the anger and all the emotions. And I definitely had that. I had a lot of anger and sadness, of course, and I didn't take it out in the best ways. It's crazy because I feel like a lot of people experience, even after you lose a parent or someone close to you, like you take that out on people that you're closest to, unfortunately, sometimes. And that was my experience with my mom, to be completely transparent. We
Yeah.
had some bad times of just fighting and not understanding each other. I think it took time, just time of prayer, time of maturing, because I was still so young. So it was hard for me to, like I said, express all that. So after over just a couple years, there were points where we were just writing each other letters of how we felt just to completely get everything out and try to really work on our relationship. There were those stages. There were stages where I wasn't talking to her much at all for a couple months. And then slowly after, obviously it still meant so much to me. I loved my mom.
Of course.
Much. So time of prayer, just giving it time to mature, trying. I think the biggest thing was just recognizing we've lost someone different to all of us, and we're all grieving, and we have to try to understand each other and love each other, because at the end of the day, family to me is so important, and those two are like some of the most important people in my life. So I think once that like mindset kind of switched, and I really think God worked in my heart just to be more forgiving and accepting of my mom dating, then the switch happened where it was more, let's talk and be open and communicate better, because you kind of have to unlearn like the bad communication style and work on that with your family, because that can be a lot in itself to just get past and, like I said, kind of unlearn. But now we're in a place where I just went home to see her just because I love her and I missed her. And my mom is just like such a lighthearted, you haven't met her, right?
I've not.
She's such a lighthearted, goofy, loving person. Like she would do anything for me or Nick or just the people around her. She's just like such a sweet person. And I think it just took time for me to heal and all of us to heal. So
Yeah, it's totally a loaded situation. And there's like anytime there's people involved, there's so much difference and there's volatility in this example. So that's hard, and people don't do well with change innately because we like stability. We're used to like, all right, we're kind of like machines. Like if we're not, if something feels off, then I mean, just think about even our body temperatures. If it goes off just a little bit of a degree, you are sick. That's crazy. So like we're very stable human
I think most
beings.
of us, right. I hated change for so long and I still don't really like change. But now I see like the benefit in change. Not that kind of change is hard.
No.
I'm just in general, but like
Yeah.
that was obviously the biggest change in my life that wasn't a positive change. It was really hard to understand, and I obviously still don't have the answers, but like I said, I have hope and faith in that there's something after this, and it's better than what's here on earth. I really do believe that. So
Yeah. So you're 6 years past, man. And there are people out there going through this. There are young kids like you that are going through this, like you had gone through. What would be your tidbit of advice to them? You shared a couple of things like unlearn the bad communication. Like you have to, like you advise therapy, and that you have to figure out who that person is that they lost because it was someone different, even if it was the mutually same person.
right,
Same
yeah.
person.
I think the biggest thing is that you do have to, no matter what age you are, but I'll be honest, especially for kids, like I was a little bit older. Like I wasn't super young, but I was still a kid. I was 17. So I think for kids around that age, I really think that it's so important to let yourself feel how you feel and have an outlet where you can just kind of put that on someone. Like as a kid, you should be able to have that. I really do, just to have that support. Because there's a lot there that I'm still learning as like what that kind of trauma does to your development. Because it changes things. So I think letting yourself feel that and being as open as you can be is really important. And again, I know everyone's at a different walk in their life with believing in what they believe in, but I think believing in Jesus and giving him a chance is really important, because I think for me, it changed my life. And again, that's not to push that on anyone. I just think for me personally, that was something that was completely just changed my whole life and was
Hmm.
just a turning point for me. So I think trying to have hope once you get past that deep sadness is really important just because it does get better once you allow yourself to know like people around you do love you and care about you and you can lean on them for support. Um, yeah, it
It's so
is
profoundly true. Yeah.
do the best that you can with it. But there's days where it's so hard and you feel so dark and it's really hard. And then the next day it could be like, okay, I feel okay. And then 2 days later you're back to that spot. So I think just allowing yourself to feel how you feel and
Hmm.
having someone just to be open with is really important.
To give you a nod too, I think if I had to get like five pillars of who Mia is, one of them would have to be like faith in Jesus. And that, because we've talked about this a ton of times, but I think like the ongoing desire for you has always been like to know Jesus, to have that relationship. So I would say it has to be one of those core five pillars. No, wholeheartedly, no doubt. And you keep describing it, and I have to hear like, what is it? Like, why Jesus? Why?
Yeah. Thanks for that question too, just because I know that this is a it's a conversation that can be really hard to have for some people just because again I try and be really empathetic towards like everyone's on their own walk and everything and I completely support that because for me I grew up in a Catholic church and to be honest I know we talked about I think you asked me a while ago like have you always been faithful and the answer is no like not by any means when I grew up I did not know or have any kind of relationship with Jesus and I was really confused. It's actually crazy because before my dad passed, just a few weeks prior, it might have been about a month, we had a conversation and I was just questioning, like, how could you believe in Jesus when this kind of thing happens or this kind of thing happens or you can't see him? There's not, you know what I mean? All those questions
Mm-hmm.
that I have. Um, and so in the Catholic Church, it just, I didn't have that personal connection. So once my dad passed away, I know a lot of people relate to it when something really trivial happens in their life and there's a big change. People find Jesus. And I think for me, that's what happened after a few months. It was just something where when I switched churches, it was just focused on that relationship compared to the religion. And I know that Christianity is a religion, but in the church that I went to and that I learned from with really great pastors, it was always focused on around the relationship of just who Jesus is
Mm-hmm.
and his grace for you and his love for you. And um, he knows our hearts better than we do. And you have to be just honest with him and talk to him like I talk to you. Like my
Right.
parents are not these perfect, you know what I mean? It's just
Mm-hmm.
talking to him and sharing my heart. So I think the dreams, I've gotten so many different signs in dreams and just this like a heart thing. Like I feel like the posture of my heart and just who I am at my core changed so much when I had that relationship with God. If that
That's
makes sense.
crazy. Yeah, that's, I mean, that's a powerful statement right there.
Yeah, like my desires changed and trust me, I was
Mm-hmm.
not perfect. Honestly, even through college, I started to feel um a lot more like stronger in my faith, but I was just running after the wrong things. I was really confused in who I was and what I wanted and my just everything. Like I was in college, I just went through these big changes of losing people. So I was still pretty confused through college. And so making the mistakes and everything, I felt shame and I was confused and I was like, can I still have this relationship with Jesus? But now just all my experiences tied together with moving to Nashville and going to a great church where I've learned more. I know that no matter what I do, like my sins have been forgiven. And I just find such great value in that. And the biggest thing, like I said, for me is the relationship um, and not all of the judgment on religion, because I don't classify myself as religious.
Just
It's,
in relation with Jesus. Is
yeah,
that like how you, yeah.
100%. That's what I always say.
And
So,
so what for you when you communicate with him works?
yeah,
What's
I
effective for you?
absolutely. Yeah. So, for me, I've been really into worship. That's just because, as you know, I'm really into music. So,
Perfect
I
place
think
for it.
yeah, I think that took me time too, though. Like whenever I wasn't as confident in my beliefs or my faith, I didn't feel as confident to worship and put my hands up or like be in the moment with Jesus. So now that's something that really makes me feel just close to him.
Yeah.
I feel that that's what helps me, but I think the biggest thing is prayer. Whether that's with, I think the older I've gotten and the more I've grown, it's just to me realizing like whether that's with people or by myself, having that balance. I think for me, community in the church is really important. Like I have just started one of my first Bible studies, and praying with those other ladies is really, it's been like transformational. It's been awesome. And then obviously like having that individual time is everything too. So I think those are my two biggest things. Of course, prayer,
Yeah.
a lot of it, and then worship.
I'm always so intrigued on like how people do the relationship with Jesus. I wish I were how people do. That's awful. Like, God, I mean, it sounds so basic, but no, but like how people praise Jesus and how they find themselves growing in relationship with him is always so interesting to me because I feel like there's no perfect way to skin the cat, for lack of a better way of putting it. And I think simply saying like prayer is so ambiguous. So to
Yeah,
hear you say like you worship, you use music, and then you talk to him like you talk to me or to anybody else is like that's tangible. You could take that and run with it and try it. And that's always my encouragement to people who feel discouraged. Like I'm not a big sit down. I've told this to people before. So like I'm not a big like sit down and pray for a long time person because my brain is I can't do it. I will
right.
think about a million and one things. But when you find what rolls for you, like every time I get in the shower in the morning, which by the way, morning shower, like got a
Well,
shower, morning shower. Anyway, I'm like that water hits me and I'm like, boom, like, all right, I'm up. I'm like, God, like, thank you for the day. Like, here we go. Like, let's, you know what I mean? Like, let's get this thing going. I appreciate life. And that's
receiving,
effective for me. Yeah.
absolutely. I'm the same way. I am very big on the small prayers. I think that either way, it's great whether you're praying for a long time or a short time. But
100%.
where in the Bible it says like God doesn't need us to try and recite these really long prayers just for the sake of it. Like, which he knows when we're praying for a long time for a certain reason, like that's coming from our heart. But if you don't feel like you have a lot to like a lot on your heart to pray about and sit there and be in this deep moment with him, it's okay. Like he just wants us to give, like you said, to give thanks and just to take 2 seconds out of your day here and there.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone's relationship is different. Everyone's conviction and callings are different. But I think for me, I'm kind of the same way, like throughout my day, just whether it's a quick, God, I need help in this, or giving thanks or whatever it is, that's definitely, I just believe so much in the power of prayer. Um,
With that
yeah,
too, the music is spot on, Mia. Like
yeah,
you mentioning the music makes me think of it. I mean, well, you know, I love it too. And there's something like just beautiful about it and the sound and being able to just kind of dive in that. And then when you feel it, like when you could feel music,
yeah.
I think about like a wicked guitar solo or something. And you just kind of like that screeching that is like also so nice. Just, you know what I mean? Or the simple like acoustic is just anything like music.
Yeah, I agree. I love, we talk so much about music, so I'm on
Mm,
the same train as you with that. But yeah, I think worship music is something I've grown a lot into because I'm big on the country music. I was like raised on it my whole life, so that's up there too. But I think as I've grown in my faith, I've realized like I need that time. And as we kind of hit on, like it's so easy to get so sidetracked and distracted and just sit down and take whether it's 1 minute or 2 minutes or 30 if you
yeah.
can, and just like actually sit down and turn everything off and just try and be centered and turn your brain off and focus on that. The worship or whatever your practice is just, it makes such a difference. It's made such a difference for me because
Amen.
being able to be still and have that peace is just life changing. Because I've always been someone who's like, go, go, go. Like, what can I do next? And now I'm like, it's not how it needs to be. Life is better when we have time to like just sit still for a little
Yeah.
bit.
No, that's I'm chuckling because that's what my mom always tells me. Like
Yeah, it's
we'll be in
true.
church, we'll be somewhere, my legs like bouncing a mile a minute, or like I'm at church. No, I'm at home running around like doing God knows what, like 1,000 things at once, right? And she's just like, be still. She'll like just look at me. She's like, be still. I'm like, it's a good reminder there, Mom. Like, I need that. Thank you. So it's the phrasing is spot on with it. And that is that we need that stillness.
Yeah, absolutely.
you had mentioned this Bible study that you're starting, and it sounded like it's all women. Is that accurate?
It is. Yeah.
Okay, so why do you think like I feel like this is a common thing that like Bible studies or religious groups are all men, all women. I know, I mean, of course there are mixed ones, but that's a thing.
Yeah,
Like, that
absolutely.
is a thing. Why do you think that is?
I think for a lot of different reasons, but mainly we're different. I think
Yeah.
my friend Bailey, my really good friend, we were just talking about this where it was funny because we were talking about our boyfriends are like good friends and
Yeah.
me and my best friends, but the way that like boys view best friends generally is like it's just a different relationship than girls. Like me and Bailey have cried together and just are emotional and have these really deep talks. And like for Caleb and Frankie, your boyfriends, it's different. Like they have
Mhm.
a good time and they know each other well, but like they talk about football and they have fun and they like are just so much more like chill. You know what I mean? It's just I think it's just a different dynamic. I think
Yeah.
my Bible study, we talk so much about some of the girls are single and they talk about just their desire to be married and all of those things. And I think obviously women are naturally more nurturing and they have that clearly they create lives.
Right.
They, make babies and stuff. So I think it's just
Yeah.
there's such a difference when it comes down to who we are. So I think for us, we just also for like this specific scenario, we all volunteer and like we work with the babies on Sundays after church. So it's all of us
That's so
girls
cute. Yeah.
helping with I know they're so sweet. Like 1 to 2 year olds. So we just became friends and we figured like this will be really fun to have a girl group to
Yeah, heck yeah.
yeah.
I
So
think that's so true. Because I mean, that's the same thing. There's a ton of them for men. I've actually never done one. Like I'm feeling like more and more people that I'm talking to, even like on that podcast recently, have mentioned like Bible studies and that kind of thing. It intrigues me. I need to venture into that. But aside, the differences are just so innate, and like there, it takes me back to that the way we experience Jesus. I have to think that it's the way you would reveal it would be different than the way a mixed group would reveal it. There's like a
yeah,
almost like a because again, you're worried about like the fronts that people are putting out there, and I just think like the less interferences you can have, maybe the better.
yeah, yeah. I would agree with that for sure.
I have to go to bat with you though. I think this is again extremely controversial, so I apologize to throw you into this. I think that women's friendships are yeah, I agree with you on the emotional standpoint. Like you emotionally are more connected probably than men are and like maybe know each other better, which is kind of what you insinuated. But there's something about it like and I know you have great friends, so this is kind of an exception. I feel like in general, women have friends and then they like don't have friends. Like at some point, it's like you're like, where are their friends? Like why? But like guys always have like their guy friends and like that brotherhood, that fraternity.
I
Kind of
totally know. I agree on that side too. It's weird. Like you said, I have great friendships that I'm so thankful for and I value them so much. But I have also had friends where that's happened where it's like you're my friend one day and I thought we were good friends and then it just kind of things happen and you're taken by surprise by how someone would act or
yeah,
be different and girls can be I think as a lot of people talk about not that guys don't struggle with like comparison but I think girls are so we just compare ourselves to each other whether we want to admit it or not at some point in your life like you struggle with that most people I have and it's just kind of
that's got to be true.
even
Yeah,
when like you don't think you are like it's a subconscious thing I have to really be careful with like the time I spend on social media and stuff just because it's just I mean social media today that's just what it is
hmm
a lot of it is just a game of who's doing better I think a lot and it's
yeah,
a guilty of it sometimes like so I just had to I take breaks a lot and I have to like I said like reground myself but I think overall like girls struggle with comparison more so that can destroy a friendship unfortunately or just completely allow you to not be friends with that person at all in the first place. I don't know.
yeah. That's got to be spot on. I was thinking before you saying that, like women seem to have this like backstabbing ability that just is like, oh my God, like you said, where you could be best friends for
Yeah.
years and then the next day it's just like you didn't know each other at all like this disdain and that
Yeah.
that blows my mind. I mean, I don't know, like just burning bridges like that is
No, I
crazy, and
know.
it probably does stem from that, like you're saying, like the comparison or something rubbed you the wrong way, and that's it.
Right, like not that it's always that, but I think overall,
Mhm.
if I had to say like an answer for that, I think that's a big problem in today's generation. Just always, comparison's always been a big
Yeah.
thing people struggle with. So
And I think it's important now to just call this out. Like, given that families are not as big as they were just by numbers, that is like not even debatable. Like families just aren't as big. Like my mom's one of five. Like there were a bunch of them. You know what I mean? And like now, like families aren't that big, so you need friends. They had big family units, and you weren't
yeah,
gonna go and like do all that typically with your family, like where you would. I mean,
true.
that wasn't how that rolled, but so
Right.
you need good friends. Like I would encourage people that are listening, like don't be the one that's doing the crazy backstabbing here.
Yeah,
Right?
no,
Like what's up with that?
yeah. No, honestly, I think like just to be transparent, whenever I went through my phase of just being very insecure and comparing myself all the time, I would find myself again, like kind of a subconscious thing, like kind of being jealous of people in ways. And I was like, whoa, like let me take a step back and like, who am I? And I'm myself, and like I was created to be this way, and no one else can be me, and I can't be them. Like, what's the point of this? It's such a waste of time to compare yourself to someone else and try to play that game. So
Yeah.
I agree. Definitely don't be that person. Take a step back, remember who you are, and just you'll find the people that are meant to be in your life. It's okay if you don't click with everyone, of course, but like the people that do want to be there for you and love you, like there's no need to compare yourself to your friends
Hmm. Hmm.
or anyone for that matter.
Yeah, it's spot on. It's spot on. Like there's because people the comparison that's going on is like more than just the ability, right? Like I'll compare myself to Michael Jordan. Like Michael Jordan's a better basketball player than I am. I mean, it is what it is. But like it's the dignity of a human and the validity, and that's not
So
the
true.
case. Like you can't take it to once you start talking worth,
Right.
that's a different ball game. So if you're going to compare yourself objectively, and then because you need that, you need to observe your actions and someone else's actions, but don't observe the qualitatives that are unchangeable, and like the fact that that somehow dictates who you are supposed to be or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so important.
So I have to wonder too, like you mentioned this as if you two ways. You've said that you're on this journey, that
Mhm.
you're still continuing to work through some of the trauma and also discover who you are, and that your faith is always ongoing. But then also you mentioned that you once you get to a point, like the people that are supposed to be in your life are going to come around you. So are you kind of at that cusp where you feel like you're starting to feel pretty comfortable with who you are, and then these people are coming into your life, and then also still figuring it out? Like how did you kind of discover who you are? How did you figure that out?
No, I
Yeah.
love that question because, like you said, like you're right. I think it's somewhat of a balance. I really am such a believer in always growing into who you are and always
Hmm.
growing in general. So, like you said, that's definitely how I feel. But yeah, I think there's definitely a point where I knew that there was more for me than what I was chasing at one point in my life. And once my desire started to change and um, I was pursuing more than partying and having troubles with boys and all of that good stuff.
Or the
I
worst. It's okay.
no, you're not, but I I started to it's crazy to think back on it. Like I definitely things started to happen differently and I started to attract different people into my life and I just had different expectations. So all
That's
my
the big ticket.
yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, God works in ways where he brings great people into your life, but you also have to choose what you're willing to accept and not accept in a friend or a boyfriend or whatever the relationship is.
Yeah. How do you dictate that with relationships? Like, because this sounds so awful, but it's like you kind of categorize people. Like you're kind of like, yes, you could be a really good friend. And it's like, no, based upon what you've shown me, you could not be as good of a friend.
That's cool.
It is.
That's kind of hard because I think you need to give people time. I think like I mean it depends. Obviously, first impressions are important. I agree. Like everyone says that.
Totally.
Agree. But I think that people can be at a point in their life where like I've been at that point where I was not being who I truly was. If that makes sense. Like I just
Mhm.
wasn't comfortable in who I was and I was chasing the wrong things. But I still had like the same good heart that I believe I have, but I just
Right.
wasn't showing it in the right way or didn't I was had all these things going on that I hadn't processed fully yet and had healed from and stuff. So I think you have to be open-hearted, which I've learned a lot to be, and I'm still working on. And we're not perfect. Like we're humans. We're gonna judge. It happens. You have to try not to, but I mean, again, we're humans. We're gonna be guilty of that.
Hmm.
So I think it's just being open to people and giving people a chance. But I also do believe in kind of like if someone does something that's just like kind of a non-negotiable to you a couple times, you have to just keep them at a distance in your life. You know what I mean? Like
Totally. 100%.
them or care for them, but that's like the healthiest way to go about it, I think.
Yeah, if you find something egregious and it's continually happening,
Right.
like you have to question how egregious you find it to be if you allow it to continue in your life. That doesn't, because one
Right.
of those things doesn't add up. If it's that egregious, get rid of it. And if it's that
Yeah.
egregious and you keep it, then how egregious is it to you? Got to pick your
Exactly.
poison. Yeah.
There's also different extents. Like if it's someone you've known your whole life and you know their heart, you know them, and they're going through something really hard and they're acting out in different ways, like that might be a little bit different than someone that you don't know and they're just showing red flags or certain things that you're just uncomfortable with. And if it happens a couple of times, like I said, I feel like just letting them know, or not, or just kind of like distancing yourself.
Hmm.
It's probably the best, healthiest thing to do. I mean, in my
Right.
experience, it's been.
I always like looking at things like relationships as like a ship, kind of like as a boat. Like I always feel like you want to be on a boat that's built to withstand the waters and also can travel the distance. So the people that you bring on your boat are, thank you. Yeah. Like the people you bring on your boat, they can't be sinking the ship.
So true. I
So like,
love.
thank you. Like that's something I think about a lot. I'm like, all right, is this person like keeping this thing afloat, doing their part, or is this person sinking the ship?
Yeah, that kind of hits. It's because like it's hard. I think so many people have good hearts, and it's hard when
Yeah.
you care for someone to like actually take the step to be like, "Hey, I love you and I care for you, but I I need to take a step back." And like
Yes.
it's hard to do that
So
when you're
hard.
attached to someone for whatever reason it is. So,
I
but
think like,
like you said, it's important to have that close group of people around you that are pushing you closer to the things that you want in life that are good for you.
yeah. All right. So what would be your piece of advice for like looking at a relationship romantically, platonically, friendshiply, however you want to define it? Like,
Yeah, I think actually I'm just thinking because I'm like I didn't think too much about that, but I think I always say that I think friendships are a lot more similar to like romantic relationships than we think. I don't know if you've ever thought about that or if that makes sense, but I just think
I
about my
concur. Yeah.
I think like about my girlfriends and then my boyfriend, and I'm like I don't know, like a lot. There's a lot of similarities. I mean, all of
Hmm.
them are on the foundation of like trust and respecting each other and being open and communicating well. So I think you should, number one, relationships are literally, I think, the most important thing in life ever. So putting effort into them and showing people that you care in whatever the way that you think that is for that specific person is so important. But yeah, like whatever stage you're in life, whether it's you have one best friend and that is your person and you're like, I'm good with this
Hmm.
person, so let go. Like that's cool. And I think that's good. And sometimes like in high school and different stages of life, it's hard to find more than that one person. For me in college, I wasn't the most open person by any means, and I really believe I could have made a lot more friends, but because of what I was going through, I was kind of closed off, unfortunately. So I had
Yeah.
one really good girlfriend, but I think what I'm trying to say is like whatever stage of life you're in, it's totally fine to just have a small circle, but I think that you should be open to connecting with as many people as possible. I really
Hmm.
do believe that. I think building strong, and again, like you're not going to connect deeply with everyone, but I think
Right.
building those friendships and relationships on just being open-hearted and having respect and being just genuine. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
so many genuine people out there, but there's also a lot of people that are being something that they're not for whatever reason. Again, I've been through that, so no hate at all, but it's
Yeah.
just you're confused about something in your life or you're chasing the wrong thing. And I think just being a genuine person that's open and you build your foundations and relationships on trust and love for people, like you'll find the people that are for you in due time.
I think you're spot on, like with two of the things. First, that relationships are the most important thing. I mean, if you look at it, like the conflicts or the issues that we have in life, and also the greatest things that we have, all stem from relationships. All of them, whether it's a relationship with Jesus, our mom and dad, our brothers and sisters, our friends, like that's where the crux of our being is. So I couldn't agree more about that. And that alone is why they're important.
Yeah, seriously, it's so true. Like all of our like best memories are usually with someone else, you know?
Yeah, like I see, like that's my favorite thing about Snapchat. I will never delete that app because it tells me like this is what you were doing 7 years ago when you were a little idiot in high school, and I'm like, this is great. This is freaking amazing. But I so I love seeing those, and there's like people I'm like, man, like I haven't talked to so and so in years. Like I hope they're doing well, and like you laugh because it takes you back to this specific moment in your life. You know?
I love that. I'm the same
Yeah,
exact. I'm huge on those memories.
it's like nostalgia. It is like
I
documented nostalgia, and I'm here
know
for it.
exactly what it is. It's so good. Not to interrupt your thought, but
God, no, no, not at all. Please, that's why you're here. Interrupt my thoughts. Interrupt all of them.
yeah.
And then the other thing that you had mentioned about that, Mia, too, was like that the relationships that we have with our friends and then with others is kind of the same, like a romantic versus a friendship. And I think that's important to recognize because you want those qualities, and we find certain qualities, kind of like we talked about before, that like, yes, I can have this. No, I can't have this. And if they're matching up, I feel like that's a good sign,
Yeah. I
right?
think
Like,
that's it's simple when you think about it. If
yeah,
you can keep those expectations, like uphold them. So, yeah, I think like seriously, me and Bailey talked about it, and we were like, it's just so crazy to think when you really realize how similar the relationships are and how you place value in the same things. Obviously, there's differences, but a lot of them are. A lot of it is similar. When
yeah,
you're close to someone and you're sharing your life and you're trusting someone, whether it's as a friend or romantically, like you still bond in the same ways with like that trust and stuff. So yeah, I think if you look for those things in any kind of relationship, you're gonna find the right people, whether it's your person or your friend or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right. Do you think you have to like cut somebody? So like when you mentioned like when you're like, hey, like I love you, but like I got to take a step back. Like, do you think it's like cut it, or do you think like, or can you do that categorizing thing where it's like, you know what, like, or there are degrees. Maybe degrees would be a better word. Like you're like, okay, I need to take a step back. I need to like weigh in on this human being.
Yeah. That's been hard for me. I think it's hard for again so many people, but
Yeah.
it can be good to do that. I just think about my experiences, and even my mind goes back to my mom. And I'm not going to get into too much detail because that's like her life. But I think in relationships, it's easy. I think more so romantically because there's obviously a lot of different ways you can be attached and stuff. But
Mhm.
it's hard to do that. But I think sometimes it is really necessary, even though it might hurt you in the moment really deeply. Over time, it's probably just a lot healthier for the both of you in a relationship if it's not healthy, if continuous things are happening that hurt you. So, but that's the thing, like, is it really a cut if it's happened a couple times and it's like,
Right.
you know what I mean? But I think, yeah, if it's at
Absolutely.
that point, it is necessary sometimes to unfortunately have to just move forward and either whatever you have to do that for yourself.
Yeah.
Uh,
To like go back to that ship analogy too, like the boats are headed somewhere. There's a destination. And so just like us, like we're headed somewhere. We have a destination, whether that's, I mean, it could be anything. It doesn't matter what it is. But the idea is part of the people that are like, maybe they're not sinking the ship, but maybe they're steering it the wrong way. And so even if that's the case, like I feel like these are the things you think about. And when you find out who you are, which is what stemmed this entire
so
conversation, is like those people can't be pivotal. It's just as simple as that.
yeah, for sure. I want to go back to the point where you said like they're just maybe steering it the wrong way.
Hmm.
'Cause I think, especially being young, but just at any point in your life, whatever you're going through, like sometimes it's the honest truth that it feels like right to be doing something wrong. Sometimes, like
Okay.
a place where we're just not there with like having the most healthy habits, and we're just allowing certain things to happen, if that makes sense. So, like,
Hmm.
you're, I think. I'm just thinking about a certain instance where you hold on to like the fun with someone and just like that connection and everything, but you know deep down that that person isn't treating you right, or you're not on the same page and they're steering it wrong. They're steering the boat wrong.
Yeah.
But is it enough for you to just cut them off? Because you also have that side where it's like, it's fun and like you're connected and you're attached. And so it makes it hard because your emotions are involved in everything. But that goes into another really important conversation of, I just think like you cannot let your emotions lead. Like you just can't. I think in a lot of instances, you have to, obviously, that's so important to feel those emotions for the person you're dating and everything. That's everything. But like, if you're in a place where you don't know if you should stay in a relationship or not, I think being logical and just realistic about where you're at and the things that are going on is really important to like take a step outside of where your heart is and just remember what you really want in the long term from someone. I think that's just everything. Because when you think long
Yeah.
term, like you want in a wife or a husband, if that's what you want, with marriage one day, you'd rather probably take a step back and have time to yourself to realize like, okay, this is not what I want out of someone that I'm going to marry. Or like, I think it just gives you time to realize and just remember like you want something bigger than having fun with someone and letting them, play with your emotions.
For sure. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And when you're in it, like you can get wrapped up in whatever that thing may be.
Oh
Like I
yeah.
think like even within a friendship, like there's a person who I'm close to and but not to the same degree that we once were because I don't do lying. Like lying for me is that's
Yeah.
like a non-negotiable. I'm like, if you lie, I'm scared of you. I'm so scared of you. It's unbelievable.
Breaks that
Yeah.
goodness.
Oh, yeah. And so I that's where the degree thing comes in for me because we're not nearly as close, that person and I, but
I guess
still there's still the friendship there or whatever. And
like you
that's
have
kind of how I feel about it. Like you're steering it the wrong way. Or you have the ability to make that thing sink, which is also frightening.
do you not to flip this on you, just but I'm
No,
curious.
please.
I think I don't know what happened in that situation, how like serious it was, but do you think there's certain instances like rule breakers basically where you're like, okay, this person did do something that's usually a non-negotiable, like lying to me, but I don't think that's like really them or whatever the case is, where you would still allow yourself to be as close to that person? Or do you think
Yeah.
that's non-negotiable should be
No, I'm
just
never like a carte blanche kind of guy. Like I there's always gray, I think, and that's because that, black and white is dangerous too because that takes out the emotions. Like I think that if you're black and white, that's completely logical,
yeah.
which is like very good for say a nurse. Is there a pulse? Is there not? There's no pulse. Okay, we need to get a pulse. You know what I mean? Is there a pulse? Yes. Okay, he's alive. Like stuff like that. But when you're talking relationships, there is that gray area because there are emotions involved. So in this instance,
Right.
it's an
That's like
entirely
where that's where it can get tricky. Like it's hard. But I think I agree. There's obviously certain instances where you have to think with your heart or give people another chance and everything. Things like
yeah.
that.
But this is where you have to know that too. Like you can't just sit here and like bury your head in the sand with it. Like I recognize like okay, this person who is again still a great friend to me
Right.
is like not again like there are expectations like the expectations not there like that was some suspect kind of stuff that was done. So you gotta you knock down the totem pole a little bit, like you're down the pendulum.
Yeah.
That's
And
all.
there,
That's what I think. What do
yeah,
you
I
think?
no, I'm on the same page, I think. And I think there's room to like get back to where you were in a friendship or a relationship
Yeah,
in certain cases. But yeah, I think that's how it should be. Like you have to keep those boundaries and just that's what happens when someone lies or doesn't. That's natural to
mm-hmm.
have to heal from that.
Here's one for you. Well, I actually before we go there, you talk about the emotions too, and like I think that's something that like the big push right now, again, like societally, is to be so in touch with your emotions, which is good, but you can't let them run you. Like you need to be in touch with them, not them being in touch with you.
Yeah, I agree.
Why why is that such a thing right now?
Um, Good question. I think that's hard because I mean it's true. I think you have to be in touch with your emotions. That's something I've learned a lot about because I used to be pretty closed off in certain stages of my life. But then again, there's like that where you cross the line and it's kind of dangerous to just live in the state of like
Mm-hmm.
whatever you're feeling in the moment. I think it's a balance. I really do believe in a balance in that way, just because, like it basically just said, like you have to express how you feel, know how you feel, and be aware of it. But you can't make decisions based off of how you feel. I don't think really, like most of the time for me. Um, I don't know. I think in relationships, it's hard. Like, I guess I'm talking about like if something's going on, like in the heat of the moment, like you're having a disagreement or,
Hmm.
something like that. Like, I think you have to give it some time and not speak off of emotions running high.
Sure.
There's
Yeah.
so many different situations where you should lead with your emotions or follow that and express that and all those things. But I think it's mainly a balance.
Yeah, and like gut feelings and stuff like that's all a thing. Like there's a lot of times we can all think of like whether we felt unsafe or whether it was like, I got a bad feeling about what this person's saying. As in, like when you catch someone in a lie, you usually get that feeling first. Like you're kind of like something's off. And like I
Yeah.
don't know, it's more of like a feeling than it is like thinking logically. Usually you don't catch someone in their lie saying like that doesn't add up. It's more so like I don't know about that. Like you know what I mean?
For me, when I've lied in my life, I'm not a good, I can't, like, it's probably so obvious. It's just something where, like, you get that feeling when someone is
Mhm.
being dishonest most of the time, you know? So,
Yeah, yeah,
I agree.
no, lying. Ugh, it's a nasty one.
Yeah, no, definitely is. Not fun.
So, oh God, yeah. It's funny. It's funny because everyone's so different, and that's what's so great about it. And like to think of it as like colors, like there's this Halsey song where this song is called Colors, and like she talks about this guy's like blue, and then like she was red, and then they made purple together, and like then he's like, oh, I don't like purple, and he bounces basically. Yeah, kind of
Okay.
a cool like analogy. She's very creative and all that jazz.
Yeah.
Brilliant, like songwriter, and so that I think kind of sums up what you're talking about too when you say like you're not going to gel with everybody. And
Yeah,
it's just what it is.
absolutely. Yeah. That's just
And
a
that's an
thing.
okay thing.
You have to accept that, I think.
No.
People do struggle with that. Like, everyone has to really like me. And, like, I hate, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Never really had that. I mean, there's times where like if someone doesn't like me, of course there's like times where like, oh, I like why? Like I want them to like me. Like I like, you know what I mean? It's just like, but you're just not, even if you're both two good people, you know what I mean? Like you might just not
Sure.
click, whatever it is, but it's just natural. It's just gonna happen. Like you have to, I think you have to accept that.
Yeah. My sisters say I say this all the time, the phrase ebb and flows, but I really think that like that's how life is. Like life ebbs and flows and that things come and go. And that's you
Yeah,
once you become accustomed to that and like realize that that's part of it, like then you're okay.
100%. It's just that ability to adapt, whatever helps you to do that. But things are ever changing all the time. I
Yeah.
think that's hit me so hard recently. Like just the changes of moving away from home and being a full-on adult and all of that that comes with it. With like figuring out who you are and then the financial side of it and the friend side of it, relationships, all of that. People coming and going and for different reasons, whether that's in their
Hmm.
control or out of their control, whether you lose someone or your friendship just fades away or whatever it is. Like it's hard to accept things and have peace with things sometimes, but I think I am someone that believes in, for the most part, like things happen for a reason. Um,
Definitely.
but also, I believe in like people have choices to make and
Yeah.
obviously outcomes that come out of it, things that come
Yeah.
out.
That is like that's so true. That made me just think like when people make a decision, they don't like make a decision usually thinking this is gonna be awful. Usually, like
Yeah,
when they make a decision, the idea is like that they think that that is the right choice at that time. Typically, like probably the majority of most decisions that people make are like this is the right decision.
for sure. Yeah,
It's
I agree. I mean, obviously, there's that like amount, like small amount of when maybe you're young and like something's not right, but in the moment it's the adrenaline or whatever. You're like those kinds of decisions. But for the most part, yeah, I think that's spot on with
mhm.
decisions like in that moment based off of emotion or what they think is right. They go with it. And we all make mistakes. Like none of us are gonna always make the right choices. So
Yeah,
always I think there was someone on your podcast that was talking about like even if you experience a failure, there's so much to learn from it and there's so much benefit. And it's so true. Like I don't know. Even if it isn't exactly a failure, it's something that negative or something that was negative or something that hurt you. There's just always going to be something to learn from it.
absolutely. And as we kind of get near this end of the episode here, That is the most natural segue that possibly could have happened. Do you have any of those decisions where you kind of regret them? Like, do you have any regrets in your life where you look back and say, I probably wish I would have done this or had not done this, whatever the regret may be?
I love that question because I used to be that person, which I get it. Like, I used to be that person that's like, no, I live my life with no regrets. Right.
Yeah, with an A.
I think that, like, you don't have any regrets in life. I don't know, recently, this might change in a year. I might be like, no, I'm back to having no regrets. Like it could change because I used to be like that for a while. But right now, I really feel like you should look back and have things that you're like, geez, I really wish I could have done that better. Things that matter. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
too many mistakes that you're like, okay, I could have done it better, but I don't regret it because I learned so much. But the two things that I was thinking about, number one, obviously, is just I lost my dad at a time where I was a teenage girl and I wasn't grounded. I wasn't present in like spending time with people. So, of course, like with a lot of relationships, I just regret not spending time and being present and just fully taking in whether it's someone giving me advice or telling me something or just sitting there watching a movie with my dad. Like, I
Mhm.
just wish I would have taken that time in more. Of course, that's going to be something
Yeah.
that, but also that's something that I think you do. It's also something that like you learn from. You know what I mean? I
I
regret it.
know.
I think that's the most important thing in life is just valuing your relationships and being present. But I also know that like I've learned from it and I've gotten so much better at being present with people. But I do still classify it as a regret because that person's gone out of my life right now. So that, were you gonna ask something?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
And no, the other thing was, this is kind of like a smaller thing, but honestly, the my time at John Carroll, I didn't get too much into it, and it's given like after everything I went through my senior year, I was really closed off. Honestly, I really was chasing the surface level things of drinking and having fun and following the crowd, which is kind of sad, but it happens. You learn from it. Um, so I think being so closed off in
Mhm.
college because I know that that's not who I really am. I know I have more to give to people and friendships.
Right.
I could have made more connections and just following that. Like I went to Nashville for that internship and it was great. And I don't regret that, of course, but like not finishing my time living in John Carroll, I actually do kind of regret that looking back. Um,
Yeah.
because I feel like that time is so short where you're truly living on your college campus with all of your friends and you have that opportunity to make connections and just be in that stage of life.
Mhm.
So recently I've like talked to Caleb about it and I'm just like, he asked me that. He's like, do you have any regrets? And I was like, honestly, I kind of regret, actually, I do regret not finishing my time at John Carroll because I just think it's so important to be in the stage of life that you're in.
That's
Just,
yeah, nail on the head.
and I was like so rushed to get to Nashville and like be a professional line dancer.
Great career, by the way. That would be so friggin' fun. Oh my
Great
God.
job. Yeah, I know, but
But like that's okay, like not to be preachy or whatever, that I think I so agree with you. I try and evaluate my decisions that way. I'm like, okay, look, like,
mhm.
can I do this again? And if the answer is no, it's like, okay, for God's sake, take it and run with it and just enjoy it like that. And I mean, not to like kick you while you're down about it, or but like I totally, I agree
Yeah,
with you. That's how
yeah,
because I think we all can look back and say like for me, I agree. Like I spent too much time with some people, and like it's like man, like I didn't branch out enough, or whatever the case may be. But
yeah. But I
you
think
got to
you
live in that season.
right. You did a good job. I'm sure like you might have something relatable, but like for you in college, like you were very good with connecting with people and just like being where your feet were, I feel like.
Thank you. I
In college,
try.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Now
love
I'm
people, so I know you
yeah,
do too. But I'm just like, I can't help it.
the stage that I was in and it was I just struggled to be more open. I was just I remember my one roommate was like, you're kind of hard to get close to.
That's
And
hilarious.
that like and now I feel like that's the opposite. Like I really do, but in that time I knew that was true and it kind of like hit me. I was like,
Yeah.
that doesn't feel good. Like I don't want to be someone who
Right.
it's hard to get close to. So
What year
that
was that?
junior year. No, I lived with off campus sophomore year. I think it was the end of sophomore year because like I was there for almost a year.
Hmm.
Um, it wasn't the second year. So yeah, sophomore year.
God, that's hilarious that she said that. I mean, that is just so out of pocket. She's just like boom, just backhand to the face. My God,
Nicer
just
than that.
ruthless.
She said it nicer. She was like, I just feel like you're like kind of hard to get close to. Like, and I think she was like asking, like trying to ask me like why. She wasn't trying to be like
Yeah.
not a nice, like, you know.
No, yeah. It's just the way it was delivered.
No, yeah, no, but yeah, that was kind of a little realization for sure.
The thing with the regrets too that I think is awesome that you said is like that you should look back and have regrets. You were the first person on this podcast at season 3, episode, I don't know, like close to 30, something like that. And you're the first person that said that. Honest to God, I've never had a conversation where someone said you should look back and have regrets. And I agree with you. Like,
I just, I don't know. It's been recent that I've kind of switched to that mindset of thinking that. And again, I think there's so many things that I am like, I'm gonna make mistakes and I don't regret them because they're like more trivial or whatever it is, or just
mhm,
something I really feel like I took so much from. But not being present with my dad, who unfortunately passed away, and like taking a lot of time for granted. I was obviously, that's the thing. I was young. I'm not the person that I am now back then. So like I have to give myself grace and everything. But at the same time, like you said, if you would ask yourself, could I do this again? Of course, the answer is going to be no. I don't want to take time for granted with the people that I love
yeah,
and be consumed in things that don't matter, like my phone or whatever it is, something else.
100%.
Which we're again, like it goes back to we're all gonna be have moments where we're talking to a friend, but we're thinking about something else. I'm not talking about that, but I think just overall
Mhm.
learning to be present and not taking time for granted because it is so important to just be in it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I have 2 final questions for you.
Oh,
And I'm so grateful that you've been on the show and just kind of opened your heart and shared your wisdom, really.
well, thank you for
Because
having
yeah, because suffering, something about suffering that like opens people's eyes. I don't know what it is. And I'm infatuated with thinking about this idea that like trauma and suffering and pain somehow opens up our eyes. But that's for episode 2 with you on the show, I guess.
Yeah, it's a big one.
That is a big one. Uh, what kind of okay? So, what message first would you have for whomever you want to direct it to? Like, what piece of advice, what tidbit of information, what would you say to, you could pick the audience or to just whomever's listening?
I think I'm actually gonna repeat something that I've heard before. It's not like coming straight from me. Lauren Daigle, she has the same last name as me. She's one of my biggest inspirations. And she said in one of her podcasts that true freedom is giving people the permission to misunderstand you. So I just think that's so good because like we talked about so much, we can get so wrapped up in like what people think or who people are saying that we are. And I think having peace about like who you are and knowing who you are and all the things that you have to offer and who you are at your core is so important in life because if you're not living in that, like you're not being who you are, what's the point? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's all a facade.
Yeah, I think having that peace just to give people permission to misunderstand you and not maybe being so hurt by it, especially when it comes from someone who doesn't know you, is really important. I think that's really good advice.
It
And
is really good. Yeah, the Daigles nailed it. Mia and Lauren, you guys killed it. Yeah,
yeah, and I think the other thing is just like overall in life, I think it's so important to just take a leap of faith. Um, and whatever that is, like if it feels like something that could be good for you, obviously something like healthy and that would help you to grow and thrive.
hmm,
It'd be scary when you think about how like great something could be or how different it could be, but I think it's so important to just like go for things and not question yourself too much and just take a little bit of a risk on, what you're dreaming about.
that's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. My final thing for you, Mia, and we've talked about this a plethora of times, but I have to hear your perspective again and now. I'm a huge contender that people that live gratefully have better lives. Just point blank, if you are a grateful person, you are happier, you're more joyful, you are just a better person.
Yes.
What is gratitude to you and what role does it play in your life?
Oh my gosh. I am going to try and not take forever because I know we're wrapping this up, but I'm
However long you want.
I'm right there with you. I think gratitude is everything. I think for me, all the hard things that I've been through, I recently lost my job randomly. They let go of a lot of my department. Um, in that time, it was so easy to be like, why me? Why did this randomly happen? I had no heads up. What's going on? What's next? Like feel bad for yourself. And it's okay to
Mhm.
be upset. But I think if you can switch your mindset to thank you for all the blessings I still have. Thank you for redirecting my path because I know that this happened for a reason. Obviously, there's that amount where you have to be accountable for if you did something wrong. But overall, I think being thankful in general is so important. And I think for me, obviously giving thanks to God and for all the blessings in my life, it changes your whole perspective and your attitude towards life.
Totally.
Um, there's a time for a while where I was like writing down every morning. I'm thankful for like 10 things. Just get your mind going and be positive in that way. And that was super life changing too. Uh,
Yeah. I might start that. Like I'm gonna start that tomorrow morning. Just be like, boom, 10 things.
yeah, it's such a good vibes.
It is good vibes. It's a great way to start the day. You were starting to say, I'm sorry, I kind of interrupted you.
Oh no, you're good. That's what I was gonna say. I think it's everything.
Yeah.
And obviously you have to give yourself space to also like I keep saying it, but feel like upset and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of things are temporary with feelings. Like every feeling you're gonna
That's
go
so
through.
spot on.
So I think if you can be thankful as much as you can, because there's still so many good things in life. It's just life is great.
Life
You
is
get-
great. Yeah. I mean, you have, and I think you embody that wonderfully, just absolutely beautifully. Like you live in a grateful presence with faith with faith as your root, and to have that and to have your ambition and like your drive is really what we all hear today as we sit and talk with you. Well, I talk with you, everyone else can listen. So, but yeah, I just can't thank you enough for again your vulnerability, and our hearts go out to you and to your family always. We're praying for you, and
Thank you
that's
so
an ongoing
yeah.
that's an ongoing thing. And so we're with you, we're rooting you on. For all of you that are listening, this has been a stellar episode. If you want to get in touch with Mia, I will put some sort of contact for her in. If you're on YouTube, it'll be in the first comment because YouTube, if you're listening, you stink. You don't let me put attachments into my description. But if you're on the podcast, it'll be right linked below. So just give it a click and give her your best information or whatever you need to say. Mia,
Absolutely.
thank you again.
Thank you so much, Joe Clark. I'm so glad we got to do this.
I know it's been way too long.
I know. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. It's awesome.
Again, everyone, this has been a really special episode of Chats with Clark. We thank Mia Daigle for being on, and I thank all of you for listening. If you haven't yet, you're taking too long. Hit the subscribe button. We're on year 3 now. Just hit the button and enjoy all these episodes with us. Again, thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Joe Clark, signing off from another Chats with Clark.